I'm glad the world is finding this love of aviation, and if you love Top Gun, I think you'll love Devotion.
Finding the love of aviation through the wonderful Glen Powell, ladies and gentlemen.
Ready, set, hit!
Jonathan, I want to start with you. What is the one aspect of this story that you wish you could have turned to Jesse and just asked him for more details about his personal experience?
Wow, it's funny you say that because that's actually something that we did. You know, we would take time, sometimes between takes, sometimes before a scene, and JD would come up, our director, and say, is there anything else Jesse wants to say? And I would just get quiet and listen, you know, and sometimes a new feeling would arise or an image would arise. And for instance, there's a moment where I'm speaking to Tom Hudner, played by this man here, and I'm telling him about the swim test. And there's a line in the film that says, but every time I made it out. That wasn't in the original script. That moment came from JD, you know, being, was there anything else that needs to be said? And I sat there and, you know, we sat there and waited, and then we took it again, and that line came out. So I'm glad you asked that question because it's something we actually practiced. So yeah, thank you.
It's also one thing I've learned from Jonathan is in the chaos of a film set, never to, especially when you're playing a real life person who you really care about and you have one chance to tell the story, he's a guy who can calm the chaos and really listen and find those moments and find truth in what could be inauthentic in any other actor's hands.
That's a great question.
It is a great question.
I would like to know what his drink order was.
Oh yeah.
I just feel like it was very like Bond-esque when he would walk up to a bar and, you know, the shaken not stirred thing would be like, and it wouldn't even be that impressive. Or I don't know what it was, but
it was cool.
I feel like I got a lot of information about Marty, and I got to listen to audio of him from a podcast he did right a year before he passed. So I got a lot of detail, but then it was like the small things you just, not even for the role, just because you feel like you know the person at some point and you feel like you're become like friendly with them, and I think that would have been nice.
At the dinner table, when Jesse tells her that he has to leave, JD having the experience of his father being a naval aviator and his mom being the wife of a naval aviator, when we had that conversation, it was definitely this, me looking to JD as a, where do you want me to go? It's the hardest scene for me in the film, specifically because of some things that Jesse says in the film to Daisy. And so that would have been a perfect just, you know, cut and go over and what were you feeling? What were you thinking? Because I know you don't want him to go, but this is what we've been working towards. And so that's the one scene where I would have used all the guidance that I could have had.
We knew this day might come.
Doesn't make it any easier.
Lieutenant Tom Hudner.
Jesse Brown.
It's good to meet you.
Jonathan, what is the motivation behind Jesse hooking his thumbs into his flight suit the way that he does?
Oh, what are you talking about? No, I just, it's interesting when you play someone that actually existed and made impact on people, you just study and study and study and study. And I saw an image, I saw a picture of him with his hands in that way, and it just stuck in my head. And then of course, you know, the way my brain works, I think I was driving in North Carolina to the airport to get to Atlanta, and I saw a buzzard, and I went, interesting. And then I thought of Vulture's Row, and I thought, interesting. And I thought of looking and access, and I remember the picture, and I went, aha, there it is, you know, there it is. So it was a, working backwards, I saw an image of him standing there in his flight jacket and went, okay, we're gonna go with that, you know. and it just stuck. You know, there's something very peculiar about Jesse, from the physical articulation of that to the hat, which he actually wore, to the fact that his flight suit was a different color, you know, in the latter part of the story and the book and the mission, etc. So I saw that and just honed in on that specificity, and it really stuck, and that's what we see in the film.
It's wonderful to watch Jonathan's brain work in terms of creating this character, because I had the ability to meet Tom Hudner and really understand, talk to a lot of his relatives, and really understand a more three-dimensional person, where Jonathan, the research that he had to do was much more excavation. I mean, you really had to dig to find those things and build that character, and there is nothing out of place with that character. Everything is done with intent, and that's the one thing that Jonathan does is nothing is left untouched in terms of performance. Little things like just body language and things like that, there's intent to everything, and it's really cool. As a fellow actor and his co-star of this movie, to watch someone with that level of thoroughness and intent, it's a wonderful thing to watch. It gives you a lot of confidence that you're gonna make a great movie.
What are you gonna find out about your wingman cruising at 10,000 feet, Lieutenant?
I think audiences are going to watch this film and your aerial photography specifically, and just, you know, in a jaded sense, assume that it's green screen and CGI. So I would love to know to what percentage, if any, are visual effects that you use, and how much of it is practical?
So the goal from the beginning was we need to put as much of this in camera as possible. And that's only because I feel like audiences are getting savvier, they're getting smarter, even if, you know, you don't know exactly the terminology, you know when something's off. Yep. So what we wanted to do was, step one was like, we had to find as many of these planes as possible, which is a difficult task in and of itself, because they are World War II into Korean War era aircraft. I think there were only 12 flying Corsairs in the world left, and we had 6 of them, you know. Wow. So that was just step one, and it was like the first thing I said when I met to even, you know, get to be a part of the film. But, you know, given that we have scenes where you need 25 Corsairs, like when you start to sort of prioritize what the process is going to be, it was really like, okay, the action closest to camera, let's have that be practical. And then we'll fill it out, you know, when we need to fill the sky with all these other aircraft, you know, copy paste, and I know it's not that easy, but copy paste, set more planes in the background. But you know, it's all motivated by the fact that, like, this is a character story, it's a relationship story. The tactile nature of the drama has to be sold both at a dinner table as much as it does in the cockpit. And if the drama's good, it's scarier in the air, and if it's scary in the air, the drama's better. I mean, it creates this kind of feedback loop. So look, there are plenty of visual effects in the movie, but you know, my sort of feeling coming into the film is that in camera is actually not just an approach, it's also an aesthetic. You know, and that's where we really wanted to sort of, you know, push things if we could.
You belong in the sky, Jesse. Just remember, you belong down here with us too, okay?
Glenn, there's going to be comparisons to Top Gun Maverick. It's just unusual that they come out the same year. But in what way were the experiences different for you?
Well, it's wild because, you know, I've been developing this story for probably 4 or 5 years, you know, read the book even longer than that. And then, you know, so it's interesting, this journey actually predated Top Gun. But what was wonderful about the experience is a lot of the lessons that I learned on Top Gun from Tom and Chris McQuarrie, Joe Kosinski, Jerry Bruckheimer, you know, really informed some of the things that we got to do in this movie, mostly in terms of practical flying and technology. But in terms of these movies, I would say they complement each other in really wonderful ways, but they could not be two more distant brothers in terms of what they are and what they say. But again, I have a beautiful love of aviation, and I'm glad the world is finding this love of aviation. And if you love Top Gun, I think you'll love Devotion.
Finding the love of aviation through the wonderful Glen Powell, ladies and gentlemen.
Show off.
That was pretty good.
It's good.
You know, Joe, to that extent, actually, there's this cliche that actors on military pictures or projects form deeper bonds. And I'm just curious if, the phrase band of brothers sort of comes to mind. Is that an actual cliche or is there truth to it?
I think there's definitely truth to it. I think we were very also lucky that everyone, I guess gave a damn and also cared about this project. You know, we were in, I don't even remember which wave of COVID, and so it's like forced us to have that camaraderie, just being able to do what we love and show up to work and look at everyone from catering to, DPs to the top, saying everyone's here for a reason and they're dedicating their time and knowing that very well. We're risking things being around in close proximities, but I think to be able to look at each other and work really hard and put the pen to paper, I think that was really essential for us.
It's good to know the men you're flying with. See what they're fighting for.
What are you fighting for?
Hoping to find that out.
JD, the movie has been making the rounds at multiple film festivals, and I'm curious, what does exposure in places like, something as big as Toronto or even something like Savannah or Middleburg do for a movie like this?
It's one of my favorite parts of the process because, as digital as everything is, there still is this weird thing where sometimes you just feel disconnected from the audience. And to get to tour with the film is so empowering and exciting, and it kind of feeds the like, oh my God, this is why we do this. To stand, outside of the theater and talk to people who are like, my dad fought in Korea and he never talked about it, or, like my son has a dream and is thinking about giving, and you see the power of movies, and it transcends our film. It's just, you just see the power of, what it is to have a shared experience in, whether it's on your sofa or in a dark room with a couple hundred people. But I'm really grateful to be able to take the film on the road, because you get to talk about it. You get to talk about it with people who have freshly just seen it, and to see all the points of entry that folks have to a film is just, I'll say this, on my monitors when we shoot, I keep a little piece of gaff tape that says, what do you want them to feel? Because I think my job at the end of the day is really about answering that question in every frame that rolls through the camera. And when you go to a festival, you actually meet them. Yeah. You meet the people that you spent years asking the question, what will they feel? And now they're here, and you get to shake their hand and hear what they felt. And that I've only really started to understand through the process of sharing this film.
And even if they don't have a direct connection to the film, just them being introduced to this story is also something that I'm hearing a lot of just like the fact that we did not know that this happened, we didn't know their names. They're astounded, and it's still something that they carry with them.
And then what you fighting for?